Cancun.
Cancun. Enter your Microsoft Office product key. Anybody have a PowerPoint product key? I don't think 11111 will work. I know. Thank you, sir.
Let's not worry too much about that. So several weeks ago, I'm going to talk first of all about DNS training. DNS is the stuff I like, it's on my t-shirt. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a study project that we're doing, again on DNS. So a couple of weeks ago, we had the first advanced DNS training courses in South Africa. We did a training session in Johannesburg, and we did a training session in Cape Town. So very brief summary of what happened. Two trainers, Johan Stensom and myself, were involved in this. One of the unique things about this particular training course, it's not just death by PowerPoint, but there's a lot of hands-on stuff. Everyone has a network of machines, of about 5 machines, and these are all interconnected with everyone else's machines. And so it's a proper working live environment from a lab point of view. We actually have a number of people in the audience who actually went on this training course. Can I see a show of hands? There's about 4 of us. 1, 2, 3? 3 of us in the room. Okay, so it's a real training course. So because over the last several years where we used to do the training course, we found that from a South African point of view, about 50% of all DNS lookups actually went through a recursive resolver. That's from studies done by APNIC. So we did quite well, but that's the simple bit. And when you install bind nowadays, that's pretty much the standard default. That works. Going further on to actually signing zones is a little bit more interesting, or in fact looking at DNS security and vulnerability. So on the one side we've got the primary and the secondary servers, and the relationship with that should be using something called TSIG to make sure that the data doesn't get modified. And I guess a number of internet service providers do that, using TSIG. If you're not doing TSIG, you should be doing TSIG. TSIG is really, really simple, and it works, and it can work extremely well. On the right-hand side of that, we've got the recursive and the stub resolvers. That's where DNSSEC proper comes into play, and DNSSEC can be slightly more challenging. So the advanced course goes into how you do DNSSEC. And with the changes that have been happening in bind recently, although it's also available in some other of the name server tools, there is a section called CASP, the key and signing policy. And this is rather cool now. You set up one stanza in your named.conf with a CASP, or the key and signing policy. You put your information into that, stating how long key signing keys and zone signing keys are going to be valid for, and bind basically does the work for you nowadays. You don't need to individually sign certificates and things like that anymore. So that's just the slide that talks about what CASP is. If we move on from there, and then you tell your particular zones to use the default signing policy, and it simply works, which is really, really quite cool. I suppose another big question that people ask is, well, what key algorithm should I be using to sign a domain with? We started out on algorithm 5. It's definitely somewhat depreciated. I eventually convinced doesn't matter. Eventually convinced Namibia to change his key. He's been using algorithm 5 for an awful long time. He's now using algorithm 8. Algorithm 8 is what the root is currently signed with, and unfortunately fortunately what a lot of people now are using from an algorithm point of view. The problem with algorithm 8 is it generates quite long keys, which means it becomes a great target for DDoS attacks using DNS. So we're looking at elliptical curve, and my understanding from the vibes, listening to the experts in the room, is that ED 25519 will probably be the preferred elliptical curve signing systems. So that's algorithm 15, I believe. So if you're going to look at signing with, and you're going to start with it, look at algorithm 15. It is fully supported by the local registries, so no problem there. And it seems to work fine, just some advice there. And changing algorithms is not the easiest things in the world, so start with a good one that gives you a good 5-10 years. Some of the other new things that have happened recently in the DNS environment is a new record type, the CDS key, or the child DS record. And basically that is what you would put into the parent, which is what you need to make sure the security of your zone is traceable, or when you do a recursive lookup, you look from the root downwards, and that is part of the chain of trust. So your DS record is the only time that you actually need to talk to your parent to put the DS record into the parent, in the same way that you put name servers into the parent. But there's a number of tools, or what a number of people are doing. If you're running a 2R registry, you should probably look at polling your own clients for CDS records. If you're a registrar and you're running DNSSEC and you're not running the domains themselves, but your customers are running their own name servers, then perhaps look at polling for CDS records that you then pick up and push to the parent. That would be rather a cool idea. And the course included some of the work there. And the other thing that was also spoken about was, well, what about name servers themselves? And that's where the csync record comes into it. Again, there's lots of work on that. And if this is all too much for you, then we can move on to more things like security. You've got DNS over TLS, which is rather a cool way of securing your TLS, your DNS, so that lookups are then private, they're encrypted. Of course, you've got other things like DNS over HTTP. The guys running DNS over TLS, they spent years and years getting it right, etc. And then along comes Google, etc., and literally overnight implements DOH, but never mind. Anyway, that was the end of the first presentation, which was about training courses. The training courses are free. You pay a deposit, you get the deposit back when you actually pitch up and do the course. It's a 4-day course, and it really is hands-on. And some people really don't like doing the course because it really makes them think, is what I was told earlier on. And I'm now going to try and change slides. Can I have a hand? Yeah. Okay, so I'm also part of this project. Well, 7 years ago we ran this project, and we're rerunning this project. This is the ICANN DNS study of Africa. So we did the 2016 and we're now doing the 2022 version of this. So this is up and running, working at the moment. The 2016, we took like a year and a half to run it. Took a long time, never mind. We recently got awarded the tender right at the end of, halfway through December, basically the end of the year. Back then, .Africa never existed as a matter of interest. But since then, Africa does exist, and so we've changed the name of the domain system that works that. Very briefly, that's the time scale that we're looking at the moment. So basically, we've just done the one ICANN meeting, very interesting, first time to Mexico for myself. And then we have another 2 ICANN meetings, one in Washington, and then the last one in Hamburg. And we will be doing the full presentation of the results in Hamburg. So that's kind of the time scale. What's new since the last one? We've added data centers, although I'm sure we need more questions there. We've also added a couple of extra languages, and there's been various updates to questions and things. What I would like to ask the people in this room to do is to have a look at the URL dnsstudy.africa. Very easy from the contents of this talk, and log in there and answer the questions that are relevant to you. There are categories of questions. There are questions for registries, registrars, registrants, regulators, IXPs, data centers, and resellers as well. So the stuff that covers everyone. If you find that you can't answer a question, or rather you can't get into a particular category, please talk to me and I'll open it up for you. And that is in my interest to get you guys to do. What else is different? We this year looking at a country leader per country. I am the country leader along with William Stuckey for South Africa, hence me talking to you as well. And we've been doing a bunch of training. It's all very, very active. And some country leaders have even finished their tasks. If anyone happens to know people from Djibouti, Guinea, etc., please let me know, because we're still looking for volunteers for those countries, so I'll ignore that slide. And country leader jobs are actually pretty interesting. Collecting information from the registry, etc. What is also new about this particular study is we're going to be setting up, hopefully, the observatory. So we're going to be collecting data from an observatory, from CCTLDs in Africa. The reason why, well, one of the things that I run as well is edu.za. So there's some basic stats on edu.za which I properly collect. And what's pretty is that we can turn these into pretty graphs, and we can look at growth over time. We can look at how well the internet from a domain name point of view is increasing. To me, this is kind of interesting. I like how the not just the number of domains, but the number of websites, and how many of those websites are secured by things like SSL certificates, etc. And that is the end of my presentation. So I believe I'm easy enough to find if you have a problem. Thank you very much. Questions later.
Thank you,
You're
Mark.
doing that.
If anybody has questions for Mark,